The morning fog clung to the streets of Frankfurt, Germany, on an otherwise uneventful spring day in 1950. The city, still finding its rhythm in the aftermath of war, buzzed with the quiet hum of its rebuilding efforts. People moved with purpose, but there was an undercurrent of routine, a predictable normalcy to the ebb and flow of urban life. That is, until a man appeared, as if stepping out of the air itself, in the heart of a busy intersection. His attire immediately drew the attention of passers-by, more fitting for the 19th century than the modern, post-war era. The man, confused and visibly distressed, looked about with wide eyes as if he were a stranger in a foreign land. His shoes, polished but worn at the soles, clicked against the cobblestones as he walked unsteadily toward a group of startled onlookers. Muttering in a language that seemed vaguely Germanic yet unfamiliar, he introduced himself as Joseph Vorin. Authorities soon intervened, escorting Vorin to a nearby police station. His possessions, an odd assortment of documents and coins, only deepened the mystery. As suddenly as he had arrived, the mysterious man disappeared, vanishing without a trace from the room where he had been held for observation. Those who had encountered Joseph Vorin could not agree on what they had witnessed. Was he a lost traveler from an undiscovered world, a victim of a bizarre temporal shift, or something else entirely? The answers, like the man himself, seemed to dissolve into the fog of history, leaving only questions in their wake. The morning in Frankfurt was unusually still. A light mist hung over the cobblestone streets, softening the hum of everyday activity in the bustling German town. Among the clattering of hooves and the occasional murmur of conversation, a figure appeared in the square, a man who did not seem to belong. His attire, strikingly out of place for the time, caught the attention of passers-by. A carefully tailored coat, complete with an antiquated cravat, bespoke a man from another era. Yet his shoes, though polished, bore the scuffs of long travel. He introduced himself as Joseph Vorin and spoke in halting German, though his dialect was peculiar, seemingly peppered with words and phrases unknown to locals. Authorities soon took notice, as the man's confusion and his account of an unfamiliar homeland raised immediate questions. When asked where he came from, Vorin stated that he was from a land called Laxaria, situated on the continent of Laxaria, far beyond the seas. The details Vorin provided only deepened the mystery. He claimed to be on a quest to locate his long-lost brother, a journey that had led him to Frankfurt after surviving a shipwreck. Strangely, when shown maps of the world, he could not identify Laxaria or Laxaria, nor could he comprehend the geography of the region he now found himself in. His belongings were equally enigmatic, documents written in a script that confounded local linguists and coins bearing markings unfamiliar to any known currency. News of the strange visitor spread quickly. Scholars were summoned to interrogate Vorin, particularly after he mentioned practicing Christianity under a denomination called Ispatian, which no one had ever heard of. Despite exhaustive questioning, Vorin's story remained consistent. He appeared genuinely distressed, confused by the unfamiliar surroundings, yet unwavering in his descriptions of his homeland. What made the case even stranger was the man's sudden disappearance. As he was being held for further investigation, records indicate that Vorin vanished without a trace. Some accounts suggest he simply walked away during a lapse of attention, while others describe a more supernatural exit. Regardless of how he vanished, no further trace of Joseph Vorin or his supposed homeland was ever found. The story of Joseph Vorin, first reported in an 1851 issue of the British publication Athenaeum, has intrigued and perplexed researchers for decades. While some dismiss the account as a fabrication or hoax, others argue it fits within a broader pattern of mysterious visitors from unknown lands. These accounts often describe individuals who appear suddenly bearing strange languages, documents, and artifacts, only to vanish without explanation. The 19th century was rife with tales like this, blending exploration, scientific discovery, and folklore. Yet, Vorin's case stands out for its detail and the historical record surrounding it. It serves as a compelling introduction to a larger mystery. Are such stories mere coincidences, cultural myths, or evidence of phenomena we have yet to understand? As the peculiar story of Joseph Vorin unfolded, skeptics and believers alike sought explanations for what could have happened that day in Frankfurt. In the mid-19th century, the world was experiencing rapid scientific progress and exploration, and yet the mysteries of the unexplained seemed to grow alongside human knowledge. Vorin's story sits at the intersection of curiosity and skepticism, a strange visitor who defied the boundaries of geography, culture, and time. One of the most fascinating aspects of Vorin's case was his linguistic abilities. Though his German was understandable, it was peppered with words and idioms that defied any known dialects. Linguists who studied his speech speculated that he might have come from a remote region with a highly isolated language. But this theory fell apart when Vorin described his homeland. The terms Laxaria and Sacria sparked heated debates among scholars. No known historical or fictional works reference such places, nor did maps from the time depict any similar regions. His mention of the Sacria Sea added to the confusion, as this body of water appeared in no navigational records. Vorin's story echoed other strange accounts of visitors from unknown lands. Just a century earlier, in the small English village of Woolpit, 2 children with green skin had reportedly emerged from the ground near a wolf pit. They spoke an unfamiliar language and claimed to be from a place called St. Martin's Land, where the sun never shone. Although the children eventually assimilated into local life, their origins were never fully explained. Tales like these resonate across centuries, leading some to suggest that such occurrences point to phenomena like parallel dimensions or alternate realities. Another parallel to Vorin's tale emerged in the mid-20th century with the infamous case of the man from Taured. In 1954, a traveler arrived at Tokyo's Haneda Airport carrying a passport from a non-existent country called Taured. The passport, along with his currency and other documents, all seemed genuine yet untraceable to any known nation. Like Vorin, this man vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving authorities baffled. What sets Vorin's story apart is the peculiar intersection of religious and geographical anomalies. His claim to follow a Christian sect called Ispatian raised eyebrows. Christianity in the 1850s was well documented, with major denominations mapped across the globe. Yet no records or oral histories reference such a group. Theologians speculated that Vorin's beliefs might have originated in a remote or isolated community. But this idea faltered when he failed to recognize the broader Christian doctrine. As authorities attempted to unravel the mystery, Vorin's belongings added further complexity. The documents found on his person contained strange symbols and an undecipherable script. While some argued these markings were a cipher, others posited they could represent a language completely foreign to Earth's linguistic families. Coins in his possession bore markings that could not be traced to a specific mint or era, reinforcing the idea that he hailed from a place beyond human knowledge. Vorin's case remains enigmatic, not only for its details, but for the unsettling questions it raises. Was he a hoax, a misplaced traveler, or something far stranger, a glimpse into worlds beyond our understanding? Theories abound, yet the answers seem to remain just out of reach. As the story of Joseph Vorin rippled through intellectual circles, 19th-century skeptics began dissecting the account. Many dismissed it outright as a hoax, pointing to the sensational nature of the claims and the lack of verifiable evidence. Yet, for every skeptic who attributed the story to fabrication, there were others who found the details too peculiar to ignore. This division between debunking and intrigue has come to define the legacy of Vorin's tale. One prominent theory among skeptics is that Vorin may have been suffering from a psychological disorder or amnesia. His inability to recognize familiar geography, combined with his conviction about the existence of Laxaria and Sacria, could be explained as the product of a delusional mind. The mid-19th century lacked the diagnostic tools to identify disorders such as dissociative amnesia or psychosis. This leaves it open to the possibility that Vorin genuinely believed his own story, even if it had no basis in reality. Other skeptics propose a simpler explanation, that Joseph Vorin was a con artist. During the 19th century, stories of impostors were not uncommon. Figures like Gregor MacGregor, who fabricated an entire nation called Poyais and duped investors, demonstrate how easily elaborate fabrications could take root in an era hungry for tales of exploration and discovery. If Vorin were a fraud, his strange possessions and language might have been designed to exploit the curiosity and naivety of his audience. However, this theory struggles to explain his sudden disappearance, unless one assumes he fled deliberately to maintain the illusion of mystery. Despite these skeptical explanations, certain elements of Vorin's case resist conventional logic. His belongings, the documents in an unrecognizable script, and the coins bearing no relation to any known currency, remain particularly confounding. Some suggest these items were merely crafted as props, but contemporary accounts describe them as convincingly authentic, implying a level of sophistication that seems unlikely for a simple hoax. To counter the skepticism, believers in the paranormal often point to similar cases that defy rational explanation. The story of Rudolf Fentz, for example, tells of a man dressed in 19th century clothing who was struck by a car in 1950s New York. Upon investigation, authorities found coins and documents from the 1800s in his pockets, seemingly untouched by time. While this story has since been debunked as a work of fiction, it illustrates the enduring allure of the out-of-time traveler trope. Another compelling parallel comes from the Moberly-Jourdain incident of 1901, in which two English women visiting the Palace of Versailles claimed to experience a time slip, witnessing figures and events from the 18th century. Unlike Vorin's case, this event had two eyewitnesses who independently described the same details, lending a layer of credibility to their account. Could Vorin's appearance in Frankfurt represent a similar phenomenon, albeit in reverse? A traveler from another time or place stepping into our reality. The mid-19th century, with its rapid advances in science and exploration, was a fertile ground for stories of the strange and unexplained. As people pushed the boundaries of the known world, they also encountered mysteries that seemed to defy comprehension. Joseph Vorin's story, whether a hoax or an authentic anomaly, captured the imagination of an era striving to reconcile its fascination with the unknown and its demand for empirical truth. The allure of Joseph Vorin's story extends beyond his mysterious appearance and disappearance. It challenges the very frameworks we use to understand reality. For centuries, human culture has grappled with the possibility of parallel existences, alternate dimensions, and disruptions in time. In Vorin's case, the notion of a traveler from an unknown land strikes at the heart of these enduring questions. One prevailing theory among paranormal enthusiasts is that Joseph Vorin may have been the result of a time slip, an unintentional crossing of temporal boundaries. Theories of time slips often describe moments where the fabric of reality shallows, allowing individuals to glimpse or even step into other times. In the 19th century, such phenomena were typically described in spiritual or metaphysical terms, but modern interpretations often frame them in the context of quantum mechanics. Could Vorin's sudden arrival in Frankfurt have been the result of a tear in the space-time continuum, depositing him from a world entirely separate from our own? There are precedents for such ideas in folklore and history. In addition to the Moberly-Jourdain incident, there's the curious case of Air Marshal Sir Victor Goddard, who in 1935 claimed to see a fully operational airfield during a flight over Drem, Scotland, a base that had long been abandoned. 4 years later, the airfield was restored and matched Goddard's exact description. These accounts, though separated by time and geography, share common threads of individuals witnessing or interacting with places and events out of sync with their own era. Another possibility is that Vorin's experience aligns with theories of multiverse travel. While speculative, the idea of parallel universes is supported by aspects of theoretical physics, particularly in the realm of string theory. Could Vorin have inadvertently crossed into our world from a neighboring reality, where Laxaria and Sacria are as real as France and Germany are to us? The concept of a multiverse is tantalizing, as it offers an explanation not only for Vorin, but also for other mysterious figures like the man from Taured. However, even among believers, questions linger. Why would Vorin carry documents and coins that held no value in our world? Was he aware of his displacement, or did he believe he was still in his homeland, trying to make sense of the foreign surroundings? The consistency of his story suggests a level of internal logic that is difficult to dismiss outright. Furthermore, his belongings, described in period accounts as authentic and detailed, raise the stakes of his narrative. These were not crude props, but intricate artifacts, seemingly tied to his origin. Critics of the paranormal point out that many of these cases, including Vorin's, could stem from a blend of miscommunication and folklore. It's worth noting that the 19th century was an era of tremendous upheaval, with the Industrial Revolution reshaping societies and displacing countless individuals. Could Vorin have been an outsider, perhaps from a rural or isolated region, whose customs and language were misinterpreted as otherworldly? And yet, such explanations falter in addressing the more eerie details of Vorin's tale. How does one account for the linguistic anomalies, the untraceable belongings, and the peculiar specificity of his geography? These unanswered questions keep the story alive, inviting speculation from both skeptics and believers. The skeptics' arguments, while compelling in some cases, often fall short in addressing the core mysteries of Joseph Vorin's account. If he was simply a fraud or an individual suffering from mental illness, how do we explain the level of detail in his claims? His references to Laxaria and Sacria, his coins and documents, and his unplaceable language all suggest a narrative that transcends simple fabrication. Even more puzzling is the consistency of his story, despite interrogation by local authorities and scholars. A consistency that remains one of the most debated aspects of his case. Historians have speculated that the coins might have been counterfeit, yet no contemporary counterfeiter would produce coins that bore no resemblance to any recognizable tender. The mystery deepens when considering the unrecognizable language inscribed on the documents he carried. Linguists of the time found no parallels to known linguistic families, leading to theories that his writings might represent a language from an entirely separate cultural lineage, or perhaps an alternate dimension. This brings us to a broader question. Could there be hidden civilizations or unknown regions that, for various reasons, have escaped documentation in human history? While it may seem implausible in today's hyper-connected world, the 19th century was a time when much of the planet remained unexplored or poorly mapped. Stories of lost cities like El Dorado or Shangri-La reflect humanity's fascination with the unknown, but they also serve as reminders that vast areas of the globe were once shrouded in mystery. Vorin's tale fits within this broader cultural fascination. However, the fact that no subsequent evidence of Laxaria or Sacria has ever emerged challenges the idea that he was from a hidden terrestrial civilization. Instead, the theories that resonate most deeply with believers involve the possibility of non-terrestrial origins. Could Vorin's sudden appearance in Frankfurt signify a crossing of dimensions? Was he an accidental traveler from a parallel Earth where geography, language, and history have diverged from our own? Comparisons to other cases further bolster this idea. In 1975, an incident in rural Spain involved a man named Pedro Olivares, who reported driving down a familiar road only to find himself in a city with towering buildings and futuristic architecture. He claimed to interact with residents who spoke a language entirely unfamiliar to him before returning to his own time, with no recollection of how he crossed the barrier between worlds. While skeptics often dismiss such accounts as hallucinations or fabrications, they echo common themes of disorientation, alternate geographies, and unrecognizable cultures. Vorin's case also invites consideration of the psychological impact of displacement. If he truly believed he was from a land that did not exist in our world, what would his experience of reality have been like? Philosophers who studied his case wondered whether his story reflected a broader existential phenomenon, a disruption in the very fabric of identity and place. Was he the sole traveler from his world, or do others exist who have similarly crossed these invisible boundaries? As the final chapter of Joseph Vorin's story is written, it becomes clear that this case remains as enigmatic today as it was in 1851. Despite the absence of concrete evidence to verify his claims, his tale has persisted in the annals of unexplained phenomena. Not as a simple curiosity, but as a profound challenge to our understanding of reality. The mid-19th century was rife with hoaxes and fabrications, from mysterious airships to exaggerated tales of explorers. Without tangible artifacts from Vorin's visit, there is little to anchor his story in the realm of verified fact. It's a possibility that Vorin's story was a misunderstanding, perhaps involving an individual from an isolated community whose language and customs were alien to urban Europeans. Yet, the enduring mystery is not just about his origins. It is about his disappearance. His vanishing act, whether mundane or extraordinary, sealed his story in the realm of legend. If he truly crossed into our world from another place, could his departure signify a return to that unknown land? Or does his disappearance reflect a deliberate effort to conceal the truth, either by Vorin himself or by forces beyond our understanding? Ultimately, the tale is a mirror reflecting our deepest hopes and fears about the unknown. It is a reminder that even in an age of scientific advancement, there are mysteries that defy explanation. Whether he was a time traveler, a fraud, or a victim of circumstance, Joseph Vorin's story continues to captivate because it speaks to the human condition, the unrelenting desire to explore, to question, and to seek meaning in the unexplained. As we close the book on Vorin's tale, we are left with more questions than answers. Perhaps that is the true power of his story. It invites us to imagine possibilities beyond the limits of our knowledge, urging us to remain curious and open to the mysteries that surround us. In the end, Joseph Vorin is less a figure of the past and more a harbinger of the unknown, a reminder that, no matter how much we think we understand, there is always more to discover.